And then we're ready when you are, Zach. We're going into the summary speech. This is going to be the neg summary speech. Neg's going first. Host Zachary's doing the neg summary.
Let's see. Okay, I'm good. Oh, let me put my camera on. Okay, 4 minutes, yeah?
Yep. No, 2 minutes. 2 minutes for the speech. You only have 2 minutes. You can't read any cards in this speech, basically. You don't have time. It's considered the hardest speech in debate, the summary.
Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Well, I can attack his arguments, though, can I?
Can you what?
I can attack his arguments, though, right?
Yeah, of course. I'm saying you probably aren't going to have time to read cards.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
2 minutes. 3, 2, 1, go. So you say that for framework, we should prefer your criterion because there's no biases. Well, you imply
right,
that.
Stop time. Do it like this. Our first contention was this. They replied with X, but X is wrong because. Like that. Our first contention was X. They replied with Y, but it's wrong because of Z.
I kind of flowed everything. It's going to be harder to respond to that way.
All right. Well, I mean, you're going down your own side of the flow is the thing. The summary speech goes down our own side of the flow. If you can't do it that way, it's fine. Just do whatever you can do with it. But you basically say, this was our case. And here's our case one piece at a time. Here are their answers to our case one piece at a time. And here's why each of those answers is wrong. So you just go down our case and try to remember what they said in response if you didn't flow it.
Okay.
All right. Give it a shot. Time starts whenever. You say.
Time starts now. Okay, so he responds to our framework, which we should prioritize democracy, saying that we should prefer their framework because it's mathematical, that there's no biases, proven with numbers. Well, what he seems to neglect to mention is that, of course, there are biases in a democratic system. That's how everything gets legislated. It's the voice of the people. People are inherently biased. It's the best way to making decisions. That's why we should prioritize democracy, because it maximizes the voice of the people. And besides as we said by contention one, that it's extremely impactful if you don't prioritize that. He said that in response to our unconstitutionality argument that whatever law Congress passes isn't unconstitutional until the Supreme Court verifies it. And that's what we're saying. Until it's not enough. The Supreme Court can by no way constitutionally say that switching to a one-day national primary is illegal. That's the whole basis of that. So I'm not sure if it's criticism there. He says that our sub 1A is that well-funded candidates will do better with other stuff. He says that okay. So he says the citizens that, or the candidates that aren't well-funded, that they can put their information on outside expensive campaigning, like on websites and whatnot. I think this is fuck, man. I can't finish this speech. All my rebuttals were like from some of the later stuff, and I got completely.
All right, hey, let's go. Let's demo it first, okay, and then we'll re-record it. I'm gonna stop this video. We'll do it again. Hey, one of you guys, Edmund or Brandon, demo this speech for him, okay? I can't do it either, Zachary. Don't worry about it. These speeches are hard. Summary's the hardest speech in debate because you only got 2 minutes.
I went back to the very beginning. I lost all the shit I had.
All right, well, go.
I didn't get 2 minutes. I didn't get any of the shit that I wanted to address.
Okay, well, hey, Edmund or Brandon, who's gonna demo this speech for him?
I'll try.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Demo.
Alright, okay, so time starts now. Okay, Judge, first I would like to address framework. My opponent's framework is voter fairness, and my framework is organizing democratic processes. But, Judge, I will point out that voter fairness, the math, again, in rebuttal, we've already stated that mathematically valid only considering the mathematicians, disenfranchises the thoughts and opinions of other people and of the voters, which therefore does not maximize the individual's voice, meaning you have to go under our framework of optimizing democratic processing.
He's
On to my
extending the
convention
earlier argument. Pause time. He's extending the earlier argument I made, which since it went unanswered so far, and which means they basically dropped it. They didn't answer that point, did you guys? Edmund, you didn't really answer
I
that
mean,
point.
not yet.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, he should also say that they dropped it or something. That's a good thing that you did, Edmund. It wouldn't have occurred to me to do that either. That's why you flow, I guess. All right, Edmund, keep going.
Okay, time starts now. Now on to my convention 1. My convention 1 is about unconstitutionality. How the one-day national primary is unconstitutional. My opponents rebutted with 3 warrants on how a one-day national primary is not unconstitutional, but this should just shows how much the federal government has dehumanized us as American citizens. Look, we're now us American citizens are trying to make excuses on why the federal government is actually constitutional. That's how much the federal government dehumanized us, and that's bad, Judge. That's why you have to vote for neg and go under our current presidential primary process that is constitutional.
Okay,
this in fact should win.
Pause. Listen, for this one on the constitutionality thing, you actually do have a card and probably want to read that card here. It's that old founding fathers card that says prefer the voice of the people when it's in conflict with the. I'll find a better card for it. You know what? Forget that. I'll find a better card for this. The thing about that is, you want to argue it not so much like you're doing it, but more like when interpretations of judges are such that the law has been interpreted where dog means cat and black means white, and it doesn't matter what the words say. If the law says you shall not steal an apple, and it's interpreted to mean that if you're wearing a hat you go to jail, then it's not meaningful. So what my opponents are trying to say is, let's allow whatever interpretation of words we want. Let's allow it so that even though it's clearly unconstitutional, it's not an enumerated power. We've proved it's unconstitutional according to the body of the text of the Constitution. They're saying the text of the Constitution doesn't matter. They just want to find a loophole to get around the law to allow themselves to get their advocacy out. But the problem is this. The Constitution is wiser than my opponents. It knows that we can live through not quite getting their impacts right now. But what we can't live through is a dissolution of the constraint of government itself. And that's why what my opponents are advocating for is anti-democratic and anathema to the well-being of the country. But let me find a card for it. Keep going, Edmund. Go.
Okay. Okay, so time starts now. And finally, I will address my contention 3. My contention 3 is about evidence of one-day national primary not working. My opponents rebutted to this by saying my evidence is a status quo and I have no link on the problem. But Judge, my opponents are missing the key point mechanism in this card. The key mechanism is centralization. We've proven that a one-day national primary will centralize into the federal government running everything, and that's disastrous because as our evidence shows. Therefore, a one-day national primary will not work, meaning that my opponents have no case since there's no benefit of one-day national primary if a one-day national primary does not work. Also, Judge, I would like to point out that my observation 1 about how the AF has to show that the U.S. has even the ability to change to a one-day national primary. My opponents rebutted that. They did not refute the warrant, and they have not rebutted the observation or met the burden either. Thank you, and I urge a strong vote for the negative side of this resolution.
Okay. Here, before we go any further, this is Wikipedia, so we don't normally cut from Wikipedia, but
I don't know how to run this neg case. I'm not used to it. I'm
Well,
not sure what to argue for.
what
That's
you're
just
gonna do what he just did. You just do what he just did, right? You go down the flow and you say it is constitutional. You need to understand, opponents, that it's constitutional because you're neglecting to take into account the plain meaning rule. It's one of 3 rules of statutory construction. The other 2 are the mischief rule and the golden rule. The plain meaning rule states that Um, the plain meaning rule dictates that statutes are to be interpreted using the ordinary meaning of the language of the statute. In other words, the statute is to be read word for word and is to be interpreted according to the ordinary meaning of the language, unless the statute explicitly defines some of its terms otherwise, or unless the result would be cruel or absurd. Ordinary words are given their ordinary meaning, technical terms are given their technical meaning, and local cultural terms are recognized as applicable. The plain meaning rule is the mechanism that prevents courts from taking sides in legislative or political issues. Additionally, it is the mechanism that. Oh, we don't need the last sentence. I'm gonna just get you this as this. You're gonna read this as a card in this speech, Zach, and I'll put it in the chat here. And basically, you're saying, okay, my opponent's argument there is it violates the plain meaning rule to say that if in fact we have to wait until the Supreme Court says before something's unconstitutional, that means we are prohibited as citizens from using the plain meaning rule to interpret the law. That can't possibly be democratic. So that's where you read that thing there for that part. Now, what were your other two answers? What were the answers to the other two constitutionality challenges, Edmund, that you made?
No, I just addressed it as a whole and said basically the dehumanized thing.
All right, so what?
I said excuses.
All right, because Brandon had 3 warrants on this, right? He had it's only unconstitutional if the Supreme Court says it is. The second one was I don't remember. The third one was Commerce Clause, right?
The second one was the interpretation of the Constitution.
Which says what?
It's interpreted broadly, and I guess.
Okay, so what's the third one?
Interstate commerce.
All right, well, that's the mechanism for broadness. So there's really 2, okay? So to answer this part, you say, okay, my opponent says he offers 3 distinct warrants for constitutionality here. He actually offers 2. I'll explain why in a second. His first is that we should that a law is constitutional until the Supreme Court declares it is unconstitutional. However, this violates the spirit and letter of what's known as the plain meaning rule, which states that for a law to be legitimate, it must be interpreted by the plain meaning of the language. It can't be interpreted to mean things that the words don't actually mean, which is what my opponent's trying to do. So if he wants to utterly undermine democracy and destroy the effectiveness of the ability of individual citizens to access and understand the law that supposedly represents their will, then you should vote on that, Judge. Otherwise, it's a ridiculous argument. It's a totalitarian argument. It's an argument that suggests that we, the people, have no place in adjudicating our own governance. Now, the second warrant he gives is that the Constitution is currently broadly interpreted. Well, it is by the Commerce Clause. However, we already know that that is a violation of the plain meaning rule. And that means that those unconstitutional violations are effectively an assault on democracy. Now, the fact that they haven't killed democracy yet doesn't mean that there's good reason to assault it more. Okay? Yeah. Does the government overreach? Absolutely. That's why we need to prioritize these plain meaning rules. Has the Supreme Court overreached already and interpreted the Constitution way too broadly? Yeah. That's not a reason to affirm and interpret more broadly still. That's a reason to call bullshit. Like that.
I'm not going to be able to present that as exactly as the way you just conveyed it.
I don't expect you to. I'm just giving you the gist of it, and you see it. Listen, Zachary, this speech right you're going to give right now is not going to be the greatest speech in history. It's fine. You'll get used to this shit. And we as coaches don't have to do the speeches very often. We have to come up with the ideas. Okay? We got to make sure we have the right strategy. So don't stress about it. My kids beat me all the time. It's fine. All right, go. Whose speech is it? Oh, Zachary's. All right, forgot. Let's go.
You wanting to record it?
Oh, I never stopped recording. So let's just keep going. All right.
3, 2, 1, time. Okay, so I want to address the framework or argument that Brandon made, saying that based on their framework, they should prioritize theirs because it's mathematically validated and there's no biases. Well, that seems kind of ridiculous since people are inherently biased, and if we're going to optimize the voice of the people and maximize that, then there's going to be some biases in play. It's natural. There's nothing wrong with that. That if we're going to be a different process, the people should decide what the best voting system is. Furthermore, his response to our unconstitutionality argument is that any law Congress passes is unconstitutional and that they already interpret broadly. Well, just because the Congress interprets something broadly and such as interstate commerce and uses that as an agenda to pass ridiculous laws that prohibit uh, a variety of things, including marijuana across states, is doesn't give us any more reason to affirm that your position. They're already violating what should be considered the plain meaning rule. Plain meaning rule, also known as the literal rule, is one of the 3 rules of statutory construction traditionally applied by English courts. The other 2 are mischief. Basically, the plain meaning rule dictates that statutes are to be interpreted using the ordinary meaning of the language of the statute. In other words, a statute is to be read word for word and is to be interpreted according to the ordinary meaning of the language, because it would be ridiculous to interpret otherwise. So you say that because they interpret it broadly, that since they already do that within interstate commerce, that any law that Congress passes is constitutional until the Supreme Court says otherwise. Well, it doesn't give you any reason to affirm your position that we should continue doing that if we all agree that that's wrong in the first place, which it is because they violate the plain meaning rule. Last thing, you say that the Warrant 3 has no huge impact to one-day primary, and our Warrant 3 being primary power being taken away from the state government. Well, you said already in your subpoint A that centralized power systems such as the Electoral College can lead to a discrepancy in logic, so why shouldn't we extend that to other centralizations of power? Thank you.
That was way better. That was way better. All right. Let's go on to the Grand Cross. No, we have the other. You guys' summary. Your guys' summary is next. Admin summary.
Okay. Okay, so
Go camera on, yo.
time. Okay. Time starts now. Okay, Judge, first I would like to address constitutionality, the unconstitutionality argument my opponents made at their Convention 1. Well, okay, they refuted my Convention 2 and my framework with this unconstitutionality argument. But Judge, I would like to point out that my opponents, in summary, they've dropped my first one against it, saying that the Supreme Court can only validate that something is unconstitutional, and they haven't yet. Therefore, a one-day national primary is still considered constitutional. And also, I completely do not know what they individually addressed my interstate commerce warrant against their constitutionality argument as well. So we have 2 warrants that stand against their constitutionality, meaning that my Convention 2 still stands because they use constitutionality against my Convention 2, and also my framework still stands. But to extend my framework, I would like to read: to advocate against accurately representing the will of the governed is to advocate against self-governance. My opponent's position is fundamentally undemocratic and marks the first step in the march towards authoritarian madness. Obviously, we ought not conceive of negating today's resolution if to do so is to negate the principles upon which our nation's liberty and prosperity rely. Judge, basically this says that you have to consider our framework on the mathematically validated voting fairness criteria. Again, this is mathematically validated, meaning we've done the research, we came prepped. This is 50 years of math going into these voting fairness criteria. And if you don't go under our framework, then you're basically saying that 50 years of math was nothing. Judge, our being under the AFT framework has to win the AFT round because our framework is about meeting the voter fairness criteria, the 4 voter fairness criteria. We've proven and my opponents dropped my Convention 3 and 4. We've proven in our Convention 3 that the status quo system violates all 4 of the voting fairness criteria. And in our Convention 4, a one-day national primary meets all 4 of the voting fairness criteria. Therefore, a one-day national primary is way more fair in voter terms than our status quo system, meaning you have to affirm.
All right. That was good, Edmund. That was good. It was really good. All right, let's have Grand Cross. If you, Edmund and Brandon, if your camera is working, can you guys go camera on? Brandon, if you're still not working, that's fine, but you can be a black square. That's okay.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
don't think it's working. It's taking a while to open.
All right, just be a black square then, because that way at least it's a nice even symmetry here. All right, somebody say time starts now.
Oh, how long does Grand Cross last?
3.
3
3
minutes.
minutes.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Time starts now.
So I want to make sure in your summary you stated that there's nothing wrong with bias
Bias
in the
is
framework.
a general term that means uh, human tendency to prefer one thing over other. It's neutral.
Okay.
Uh,
You guys said that that the fact that we gave an example, such as the Tsunami Tuesday, proves that uh, something like your system can happen and one day primary can happen, right?
Yeah. Well, we've stated that you're in a double bind. So you gave an example of a one-day national primary not working, meaning that we've met your observation one burden on we have to show if the U.S. has the ability to change to a one-day national primary, or you, but then we've also said that this is actually the status quo system. So you're in a double bind. You have to choose between like, if
We're
you want
saying
to.
the government doesn't have the power to step in and make a national primary, but we're also saying that here's a small example of states getting together and doing it, and we can relate that to the actual one-day primary because it's 24 states participating at once, and it ended up being disastrous. So we can link
Evan,
that
don't let him do that. Is there a question there? Cut him off when he's doing that shit. All right. Don't let them ramble on like that if they're not making a question.
Oh,
You cut them off and say,
so
"Is there a question there?" Go.
okay.
So Zachary, now you have to turn it into a question last second, right? Because we want them to not do that. We want them to stop others from doing that. I don't mind if they do it a little bit, but I don't want them to. I want them to stop others from doing that. So what do you now? He's asking you. You have to turn it into a question. What are you asking them?
can't clarify in your responses.
You're testifying in on the witness stand. You're not supposed to testify on the witness stand, right? It's supposed to be just questions and answers. You're not supposed. You don't want to argue your case in the crossfire
You're
because.
supposed to answer if you can't clarify.
Okay, well, okay. So what was the question? Pause. We'll start this crossover. What was the question?
The question, well, I think you guys asked us a question about, can, was it like, can you clarify your responses to our connection?
I asked you. I think I asked you if you agreed that that was proof of a primary working, and
Oh,
you
yeah, yeah. And I responded with my rebuttals against your contention, saying that you're in a double bind.
Okay, so let's say that you have. Let's say Zachary, we have a good answer to that, and you know we have a good answer to that. You say, okay, I just wanted to make that sure we had that down on the flow. These are your answers, and then we move on, and I'll hammer it in the next speech. Or if you had the next speech, you'd hammer it in the next speech, whoever, you know. But the thing is, you want to hammer those things in the speech, and you want to, you don't want to, show your hand and cross like that, basically. Okay, so let's start crossover.
Okay.
All right, go.
So you said that our third warrant explaining that our first extension explains harm to the U.S. because primary power has been taken away from the U.S. government. You said that our third warrant doesn't have a huge impact to a one-day primary. Is that correct?
Wait, can you repeat that?
You proclaim that, or more specifically, Brandon, that our warrant 3 has no huge impact to a one-day primary. Right?
We said that you're in a double bind, so so we've shown that this is the status quo system, actually. This is the status quo system you're referring to. It's Super Tuesday. It has to be the current presidential primary process. And also,
So if we can show a single mechanism that's equal to both those systems, but that it does not require the change in the number of days, can we win this point?
and what is that mechanism?
Well, I'm just asking you, in theory, if we've shown it already potentially and can continue to show it, and it stands at the end of the round, do we win this point? If it's a mechanism that's shared by both of them.
But yeah, if it's a mechanism that's shared by both of them, and so what do you?
Okay, you want to ask me what the mechanism is? That's fine. You should ask me. You should say that something. Well, you haven't established one yet, so it's too late now. So I guess no, you can't win it. Thanks for pointing that
Okay.
out. I appreciate you bringing that up in cross. That's what you say to that, okay? So I'll
Okay.
ask the question again right now. So like, if we come up with if we provide you with the fact that there's a independent mechanism that's independent that is shared by both of them that's responsible, can we win this point?
So what's the mechanism?
Well, we'll talk about we'll establish that. That's not the point I'm asking. In theory, is if we do that, will we win the point? In theory.
But if you haven't established a mechanism yet, you can't anymore in Final Focus, since you can't make any more arguments. Therefore, you can't win the round. Therefore, you can't win the point.
You can't make
But
any more arguments on focus.
you
Yeah.
can't make new arguments. You can only extend existing arguments. You can't go, oh, I've got a new plan now. Now we're going to affirm by doing this. I just introduced it now in the final focus in the very last speech. They didn't answer it at all. What is that? All right, you can't do that. Okay, so other questions? Who has a question?
Okay,
You say
I just
electoral.
want to make sure that you refuted. You said in something against the framework that it's good to have it's natural to have bias, and that bias maximizes the voice of the people.
An election is a test of bias. For which candidate is the population more biased?
Okay.
All right.
I would ask another question, but there's no way Eric would be able to link it. I'll explain my reasoning after we get finished, though.
I'm sure I could. We can
Well,
talk.
I mean, like, if I asked the question and they answered it, you wouldn't be able to link to what.
What you're thinking? You can check. You can put it
Kind
to
of
me in
like
the
it's kind of
chat.
meticulous.
You can
Kind of
put it. To,
meticulous.
you can put it to me in the chat. But it's fine. Normally partners will be able to write things down on paper and hand it to each other. You know. Okay. So my last question then is this: so is it your contention that the Commerce Clause allows the federal government to do everything it wants to, anything it wants to?
No.
Or does it constrain the government?
What?
The
The
Commerce
Commerce Clause?
Clause. I mean, it's an enumerated power, right? So it allows the government to do something, but is a limited enough enumerated power that it actually constrains the government?
Um. Wait, can you repeat your question?
Is the way the Commerce Clause is interpreted in the status quo such that just about anything can be considered interstate commerce if the federal government wants to do it? Is that an accurate understanding of what is that consistent with the plain meaning rule?
So your plain meaning rule states, uh,
That if a
wait, can
law
you
says that if a law says you can't wear a hat and you're in court and you are accused of having a teddy bear in your arm and they've interpreted the law to mean hat to mean teddy bear, that's not fair, that you can't do that, right? That's not the plain meaning of the words.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about the interstate commerce of my third rebuttal, right?
Yeah.
So, so what? Okay,
Does
so
it
what was?
you're
Go.
pointing out that it is constitutional because the Supreme Court has interpreted the Constitution to mean that you can do anything you want because of interstate commerce, federal government, that sneezing is interstate commerce. So, if that's the case, then does that violate the plain meaning rule or not?
No, okay, no, it does not defy the plain meaning rule because an election costs money. Like any event costs money, and they're telling you like how the event is structured, so it does like it does have something related with interstate commerce.
As a matter of fact, there is very little in the world I could possibly conceive of that is more directly interstate commerce than a national primary day. As you say that, you know. Of course it's interstate commerce. I hadn't even come up with why, Brandon. Good job coming up with why. But that's the answer. Of course it's interstate commerce. It's not only interstate commerce, it's the most interstate-y, most commerce-y kind of interstate commerce ever. Are you kidding me? It's like look in the dictionary. What's interstate commerce? You see primary election. Same thing. you just say it is, you know. All right, so now we've got what? Final focuses?
Oh, yeah, Final Focus.
My final focus first?
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody give me a time starts now.
How long does it last?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. All right.
I got time. Actually,
Time.
hold on. I got time myself, so I can see the time too, and not fail quite so badly this time. I failed badly last time. Failing badly, it's not a lot of fun to fail badly. And when you are done failing badly, you will feel so sad. 'Cause failure is worse when it's bad. Alright. Dos Minutos final focus. Time starts now. Judge, this is going to be a very disappointing loss for my opponents because they really ought to have won this round. They won most of the stuff on the flow. They dominated the flow, frankly, to be perfectly honest. But they lost the key warrant here that's going to lose them this round, and that's constitutionality. They are right. We dropped their third and fourth contention. Why? We agree. Their thing is more mathematically perfect than our thing. Fine. They win under their framework. We can see that right off the bat. There's no point to argue any further of our rebuttal under their contention level argumentation because we can see they're going to win under their own framework. The question is, can they win under our framework? The answer is absolutely not. We've already demonstrated the fact that in the status quo, we have a number of ways in which the system can reflect the biases of the people because that's what it's supposed to do. Our job in this round is to figure out how can we best represent the will of the people of this country who supposedly govern themselves by the election process to produce a governing system of individuals who go to Washington, D.C., who are effective, who do things in our interest, who are not corrupt. All of those sort of outcomes we're looking for. This is what we mean by democratic processes. We want to protect the integrity of the democratic processes. We want to protect the integrity of the party system. We want to protect the integrity and the ability of regular citizens to participate in the process by choosing candidates over an extended primary season. The problem they have is they haven't answered the constitutionality arguments. That's why we win. It's not interstate commerce. Plain language rule. They haven't addressed that. They haven't disputed the rule, nor have they really successfully argued that, in fact, it's interstate commerce. It's not. It's not interstate commerce to hold an election. It's not commerce at all. That's their problem. Their whole case is hanging on that. It's not commerce. Shit may happen that's commerce around it, but it's not commerce. I did a terrible job of that speech. I did a terrible job with it. I mean, I impacted the wrong things. I want to stress this. Don't impact it like that. I did it backwards. You start with constitutionality, and you impact democracy, and then you work down to the concessions at the end. I did it backwards. I don't know why. Okay? So don't use that as an example, anybody.
Appreciate first minute like explaining why under their framework it's right.
Yeah, exactly. Which shows you how difficult this art is, right? I'm very experienced at giving these kind of final focus speeches, but I just went backwards. Why? Who knows? If you're not drilling it all the time and you get good like these guys are, it's hard to do. It's a hard art. All right, next, Brandon. Take this thing home. Put this thing to bed. Put this fucker to bed because you guys have this thing in the bag already. All right, go ahead. Take your 2 minutes.
Okay, time starts now.
Hey, Brandon, you don't address any of their other warrants arguments. You can say, well, they didn't extend it in Final Focus, therefore it shouldn't
No,
be
I
put
have
there.
to address constitutionality.
Yeah, yeah, only constitutionality.
Yeah,
Because
I'm not
that's the
going to
only
just
rule they
arrest, but I
extend.
have to do it, else we'll lose.
Yeah, only constitutionality, that's all.
I wonder if the audience believes that we legitimately, unless Brandon totally tanks the final focus, but I wonder if the viewing audience legitimately believes that we lost this round. We did, viewing audience. I mean, I could I have tried harder, but
I'm not used
not
to
in
the
the speeches,
dynamic.
huh?
I'm not used to the dynamics. I'm not used to the mechanics of the rounds.
It's
I'm not used to.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you saw me flailing around with it too. I didn't flow. If I flow, I'm a lot cleaner. But but the point is, in this particular instance, it wasn't actually the flowing that caused me any problems. It was uh, I was too. I had bad economy of language.
Well, for me, it's like it's weird because they're like saying, "Okay, you claim you here's a response to your sub A," and then it's just like I don't even know what my own fucking sub point A is. I don't even know what they're referring to. So I have to go find that while I'm trying to listen to what they're saying, and then I have to try to write it down, and it's just it gets fucking tricky.
Right, but that's why we pre-flow, right? You pre-flow your own case so that you don't have to. So you have that to reference. But we didn't pre-flow. Neither of us did. So
Okay, so before I begin, I'm going to give an off-time roadmap. First I'm going to address framework, then I'm going to address their contention one, which talks about constitutionality, and then I'm going to state some key voters on my side of the flow. Time starts now. Now, Judge, you should prefer our framework of fairness. And the reason why you should prefer our framework is that mathematically, everyone's vote counts the same. Now, my opponents during summary misinterpret what I meant. What I was saying is that in their process, everyone's vote counts differently, and that's why you shouldn't. And in math, everyone's votes counts the same, and that's why I should prefer our framework. But even if we lose on this framework argument, we should still win under their framework, and I'll address it later in this final focus speech. Now, to address the contention one about the Bill of Rights. Now, the thing is, they never refuted the point about the Supreme Court, that the Supreme Court entails that everything that the Congress has passed is constitutional until the Supreme Court says otherwise. They haven't refuted that. My opponents fail to understand that interstate commerce totally relates to the election process because of the fact that how the election process is structured determines how we economically determine on what we should finance. And now to go back on my side of the flow from
wait,
key issues.
link back to plain language rule, quick. And that before you leave that one, link back to plain language. So actually, their point is an example of plain language because it's plainly interstate commerce because it's a national day, like that. Sorry, give yourself an extra 20 seconds or so. My bad for interrupting. Go.
And this totally goes under the plain rule, the rule which they stated, because that's what basically what interstate commerce is. And I would like to link back to it because I actually fulfilled that. Now, I would like to to go on my side of the floor, a key voter is my contention 3, in which their current presidential primary process fails all 4 criterions. Now, under their framework, they even lose, and they never refuted it. Because democracy is about optimizing the voice of the people, as they say in their final focus. Well, you're not optimizing the voice of the people if you fail all 4 criterions. The fact that you fail all 4 criterions show that you're doing the worst job at optimizing. You're doing the worst job at optimizing the people's voice. And that's why you shouldn't vote for them. And also for contention 4 shows that the one-day national primary actually does it better. So no matter which framework we go under, that the one-day national primary will always do fairness and democracy better than the current presidential primary process. And that's why I should vote for the affirmative.
Boom!
Man, that was pretty good.
Nice
I
job,
really like
man.
that. Yeah, you guys know how to run that shit good.
You guys kicked our ass, frankly.
Yeah, we got fucking destroyed.
Yeah.
If Alice took my place in that, it might have went better.
I think I am not at all convinced that that you were the weak link in that round. I mean, I did a bad job in both of my speeches, which are the final focus. I expected to take it in final focus, and then I just tanked. And there's no reason for it either, except I wasn't watching the clock. So and it's like
I think the math case is really fucking strong too. It's really
yeah,
hard to argue like the mathematical fair shit.
we should strengthen up the Nate case next. Okay,
We should
so
have said we should have said more about the CBA stuff. But see, it's still hard because our only evidence for the economic impact or the impacts and shit is inequality, and they can easily just be like, "Well, yeah, bro, here's the answer to inequality right here, motherfucker." Like
yeah,
this right
it's a good half
here.
case. All right, thanks for watching Talking Spanish, people. That was fun.